Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video, and today we'll be taking a look at the Youbi X1 from Awesome. As you can see, this looks quite a bit familiar to the RCAddict V2. So let's just take a look, and GearBest sent this one into review. And I have to say, quite a nice little box here that everything is contained in. So right after that, we get two sets of props here. These are 30-30 by 4, so 30-30 quad blades. And these look almost identical, well actually they do look identical, to the King Kong 30-40 tri-blades that I had for my other 130. We get a bag here with some spare things. So looks like we have a little JST to XT30 converter here, since this does use an XT30 plug, but the thickness on these wires, well, I'll talk about that later. So here we have two little battery straps. However, they are just the straight up ones that don't have little plastic buckles, so not that happy there. Looks like we have two little connectors here, maybe for our camera and VTX, I don't know. It should be fully ready to fly, so we'll see what that is. And here we have our little whip antenna. This is not circularly polarized, it's just a linear one with an SMA connector on here. It is semi-flexible, but it does not, or it's not semi-rigid, it doesn't hold its angle very well, tiny bit, but not very much. So I'm kind of happy about that because it'll be very durable in a crash. However, you're not going to get quite the range, but on such a small quad meant for smaller spaces, I don't think it's much of a deal. Plus, you'll be saving some weight. Here we have a little instruction manual. Got some, this is the Chinese side, got some nice color instructions, but the English isn't that great. Okay, so here's the quad. You can see I got the gray canopy. I thought there was supposed to be three, a white, gray, and black one included, but apparently I didn't get one because I only have the gray here. So you can see, once again, very similar looking to the RCAddict V2. Right away, if we look at the frame, you can see it's a 2mm. Actually, let me measure this here because I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, okay. It's a 2mm or like 1.9 base plate here. But if you take a look, you can see the ESC wires are actually recessed down into the arms, as well as all the screws on the bottom. And it's already 2mm, which is pretty thin, even for a 3-inch. And if you can see, hopefully, I can just bend this pretty easily here. And with the recesses, that just makes it even thinner along there. So I'm not very happy with that. I'd like to see a solid 3mm base plate. It'd be much more durable. This does save some weight, but there might be some issues with flexing. And I've seen a couple other videos that other people have pointed out. That was one of the first things I noticed when I saw it on the website, that everything was recessed, so it's kind of disappointing there. It'll probably greatly decrease the durability. On the motors here, these are Awesome branded. That's their brand. Hopefully, it's kind of hard to show it, but they are 1306, can't get it in the light, 1306, 3600 kV. You'll just have to trust me, the light's not wanting to show up. So let's take the top canopy off here. You just have two little, I believe they're M2 maybe, yeah, hex screws, so let's get into that. There we go. So that wasn't that easy to remove, actually. It took me quite a while there. Cut that out, though. You can see a little canopy. It looks like it's injection molded plastic. Pretty durable. I don't think you're going to have much problems with breaking. Got a couple little holes for airflow there. But if we take a look, we can see the internals of this quad is actually very clean. You can see our little tiny micro cam up here. It looks like it's mounted solid. I don't think, yeah, you can't change this angle very much. Looks to me about 20 degree angle, but I think it might be a pretty wide angle lens. These little tiny cameras usually have a pretty wide lens, and that's just plugged straight into the flight controller here, which I think is an SPF3 clone variant, but it's an all-in-one board. It looks like they have integrated the video transmitter into it. You can see the little channel button here, as well as your SMA female plug, which your antenna will go on. You can see there. But let's look. Alright, so that's just straight onto the board here, onto the connector. And if you look, this just goes, well, it won't fit through now, but that just goes straight up through the canopy. So there's actually not much support there. So any knocks on this is going to be putting direct pressure on this connector. So hopefully that doesn't break. It's soldered in there pretty good, so I hope that doesn't, you know, we'll see after a few crashes here, as well as the frame, if this holds up. It's pretty thin there. In the middle plate, I'm not going to take the FC off just because we have a 4-in-1 20 amp BL-Heli S ESC board. So that's really nice. BL-Heli S ESC should provide pretty smooth signal for these motors, and 20 amps will be more than enough for these motors. And since they are 3600 kV, you probably are going to be okay running something like this that's the 3030 quad blade. But I'm probably going to try some DAL 3045 tri-blades, as well as some RotorX 3040T tri-blades, some really light props, just to see how this is, because it's kind of a mid kV. It's not as low as 3300, but it's not as high as 4000. So here we are in the back. You can see this little XT30 connector. You can see this guy just plugs in pretty snug there. Well, that is pretty snug. See, it just goes up into the board. Looks like we have some spare connections in the back if we need it. I'm not sure if this is an OSD in it or not, but we will find out. And it should be ready to go out of the box. You just have to add your own receiver into one of these ports. I don't remember. Yeah, well, I'll go over setting that up in just a minute. But for this XT30, I don't have any batteries that have an XT30 on it. And I don't know, I might cut this up and make an XT30 to an XT60 connector, but I'm kind of worried actually, because these motors, I did some thrust tests on similar 1306 motors, and you pull about 12 amps, 15 amps each, maybe on max throttle, so you're going to be constantly pulling about 10 to 50 amps depending on what you're doing. 50 amps being the max. So this XT30, the 30 means it's rated for 30 amps continuous. XT60 is 60. And that is continuous current, so all the time without failure. So it should be okay, but I'm kind of worried because these wires are really thin that this might impede the power a little bit and block some of the current. But yeah, once again, we'll find out once we get this little guy in the air. So now let's try to stick our receiver in it. I'll be using a FreeSky XSR, and then I'll show you how to set that up in Betaflight, and we'll see what they have, and we'll fly it stock, and then I'll try and do my best to tune it up, and we'll see how we go from there. So let's get to that. Alright, so here we are for the setup of the Youbi X1 here. Now let me just go over a few things before we get into the software. You can see I have mounted the receiver, and this is just a FreeSky XM Plus, which I have a spare one right here. You can see it's their newest micro receiver that has full range diversity. And if you take a look at the pads, hopefully you'll be able to see this square one on the end here. This square one right here is S-Bus, the middle one is 5 volts, and the outside one is ground. I just connected that up to yellow is S-Bus, red is 5 volts, and black is ground. On the connectors that come with the X1, they give you these two little ones. I just cut this connector off and direct soldered it. This will be a very nice lightweight receiver. And if you take a look at the connectors, they actually have two different kinds here. You can see this one has one where the yellow wire skips 2 holes before it goes in. The other one, the yellow wire goes in straight next to the red. If you use where they're all 3 together, that is for a PPM receiver, and the one where it skips 2 holes is for the S-Bus. And I already had it, I didn't notice before I did it, so I just had to switch to plug in that one. That's why I have 2 of these. And then the antennas, I just put a couple layers of heat shrink, and these will come up through, just bundle up in there, and then they'll just stick through these holes, and I might put a dab of hot glue there to hold them. So those should be good, and that receiver will keep it really nice and lightweight. And I said I was going to run this on 4S, but I've decided that I'm just going to be trying these. These are some old 3S batteries. I had 450 milliamp hour Nanotech. Their 65C version. So it's a very light battery, especially with 3S, because with this frame, all the issues I had about how it's being too thin, not durable enough, and then the current concerns I had with this XT30 setup. Using a 3S battery will keep it a lot lighter, less power, so less force on impact, especially with the lighter, as well as less current through there. So that'll pretty much solve every concern I had. It just won't be as powerful, but I feel like this is definitely made to be a light 3S setup, not really something for 4S, especially not with this frame. So make sure you have the antenna on before you plug in, and let's just hook up to the BL-Heli configurator. To show you here, so you just plug in with the USB, And it uses the same drivers that Betaflight does. Hit connect, then plug in your battery. Make sure your video transmitter antenna is on and your props are off. Hit a couple beeps and hit read setup. There we go. And now I had already changed these because I've been messing around with this because there was a few interesting things. I did flash these. I flashed these to 16.6 and all the way down, but only 16.4, which is what comes on it. I couldn't get my motors to spin. They wouldn't boot up, even changing other settings like I normally do. I could only get them to stay, so I'm just staying on 16.4 because that's what seems to work. And they were not liking the manual calibration of 1000 to 2000, so I just decided to leave programming by TX on, which means you can use the Betaflight slider where you put it all the way top, click on, and then plug it in, your battery in, they'll calibrate, and then you put it to the bottom. Not as accurate of a calibration, but I think it's plenty good enough for this. I changed my startup power to 0.75, disable temperature protection, turn both of these on, leave that low, leave that medium, and I changed the beep strength to 50 and the beacon delay to 2 minutes. So I've already changed these, and you can see the pre-calibrate values, but I'll calibrate them again. So that's all we need to do there. So disconnect. You should get the full beep tones. And just real quick for the video transmitter, if you want to change the power output, if you press and hold this white button over here for 6 seconds, just wait for it. It takes a long time. There we go. You can see it has a 2 right there. 1 is 25 milliwatts, 2 is 200 milliwatts, and 3 is 400 milliwatts. If you just press the button again, you'll cycle through. So if you're going to race with other people, it'll be on 25, but I'm just going to stick on 200 milliwatts. And then just a couple seconds press to hold it and exit that menu. So let's switch over to Betaflight. Alright, disconnecting the battery, so we don't really need that. And now Betaflight already has Betaflight 3.0.1 on here, so you do not need to flash. So I'm just going to connect this quick. And I've been, like I said, playing around with this because there's some settings that were interesting that I just decided to restart the video. So I'm actually going to hit restore settings to default here, and that basically just resets everything. And if we look in here, it's using the SP Racing F3 hex file. So if you want to flash it in the future, you use the SP Racing F3. So you can go back to setup and calibrate the accelerometer if you want to use that, but I'm not going to. But I'll just give it a hit anyways so you can see how that's done. There we go. Then for ports, pretty sure it's on UART3 here, save and reboot for the S-Bus that we plugged in on the receiver here. CRX configuration, I'm going to use multi-shot since these are BLHeli-S ESCs, a 4-in-1, and it is natively supportive of multi-shot. You don't need any special firmware. Okay, let's just go down through and change this to S-Bus input and click on S-Bus here. I'm going to turn the accelerometer off, and this board can only handle 4K 2K with being under 25%. Just going to leave that there. I'm going to turn black box off and air mode on, so we don't have to enable it as a feature. It'll always be on and we don't have to worry about it. And I'll name it the Youbi X1. Save and reboot. Alright, let's go over to the failsafe, and I'll set these just both to 4. Right there. Save and reboot. You want it to drop. Don't have it land, just have it drop. It'll burn up something. Okay, so here we have this, and they have their own PIDs in here stock, but since I reset, this just goes back to Betaflight. I'll just be retuning this anyways for you guys. But you can try their PIDs if you like. And I changed my rates to 80, 80, and 110. Those are the rates that I like. And they have 30% expo, an extra 30% expo they added in here, so that's interesting. But obviously I reset, so it's gone. And we can go over to receiver. Okay, so let's just plug in the quad with our radio already on. I'm just assuming you've already bound. There's tons of videos. You just have to hold the button while in bind mode on your Tyrannus or whatever radio. So hopefully you can see I have my switches set up. I set up one switch for arming, and then these are our switches, or our sticks here. You can see just the yaw. It's having some jitter. So I usually just put about 2 for the RC and 6 for yaw. And then I'll also put in 2, looks like about 2 clicks of right yaw trim for me. Got this preview really solid. You won't be able to notice that. And obviously my gimbals are pretty old, they're about a year old, so that looks good there. And just hit save. Now we can go down to modes, and all I'm going to add is my arm switch, which is aux1, which will be channel 5 on your radio, because your first 4 are for your motor or your controls, and then aux1 is the next one, which will be channel 5. You can see I just set up a 2-position switch, and that's going to be my arm switch, so I just wanted to arm there. I don't set up a beep or anything else. That's all we have to do. And air mode is not here because if you remember in the configuration tab, we turn that on as a feature, so it's always on, so we don't have to worry about that. So next we can go down to motors. I'm going to turn my radio off. Right here, unplug the battery, and because, like I said, these ESCs seem a bit finicky, I'm just going to, I had to leave them on 16.4 BLHeli-S, and I'm going to do the calibration in here. So make sure your props are off once again. Just make sure they're off. Put it all the way to the top at 1000. Plug in our battery. Should get the tones from them. And then just bring it back down to 1000 there, 2000 at the top. Alright, just do that, and I just like to give it a quick power cycle. Now we can click this again. Click once on the master key and then use the arrow keys on your computer to tab up. You can see the motors are starting to spin. Make sure everything's free of them so they don't hit anything. And you want to go, you can see how they're twitching. You want to go till they all start spinning smoothly without twitching. These are BLHeli-S, so they should be very low RPM. So you can see right there at 1020 they start to spin. But if you leave it at this, they're going to probably have stalling issues and fall out in air. So let's see, let's bring it up to, because this is 3-inch. I might try 1040 because since this is a 3-inch, it doesn't. These motors don't have much power. So I'll go back to configuration and I'll put 1040 in here. Let's see, what is this? Okay, so it looks like it adjusts this value automatically for us, so I wouldn't mess with that. We should be good there. Let's save and reboot. And now I'm going to turn my radio on. We're going to need, oh, our battery is already in, okay. So you need that to power your receiver. So now I'm going to arm through my receiver, and nothing happened. Alright, here we are back, and I'm not exactly sure why it wasn't arming there. It wasn't behaving for me, but I let it sit for a few minutes. I disconnected everything. I don't know why, but you can see if I plug in now, I didn't change any settings. It's exactly the same. I have no idea. You can see we're good there. That blue light would not stop flashing earlier though, so that might have been something, the blue status light, because now that it's gone, you can see we can arm right there. So there's some issue. We're disconnected. I'm just arming through my switch. Everything's working. You can see the motors there. And if we arm, put our throttle up a little bit and stimulate a failsafe, you can see within a second they drop the throttle there. So we should be fully good to go. As well as I forgot to mention this with the canopy. You can see I cut this hole in it because the USB sticks out here and there's no hole, and I'm not taking this off every time when I want to tune this, so I cut a hole in it so it's accessible through the outside. So really, I just have to re-glue this down. This came up. I might use double-sided sticky tape. Put the canopy back on, put the antennas through the holes, and then mount the battery strap, and we should be good to go. This looks like this guy's ready to get up in the air. I'm really excited to test this out, so that'll be the end of this video. And the next video we'll be doing, I might do a tuning video straight after this on this one, and then follow up with some flights to make sure I have a good tune on it. I don't know. We'll see. Whatever comes up next, you'll know. But thanks for watching. I'll leave a link down to my Patreon below if you wish to help support the channel if you like these videos, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.